this and you got that, and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. Today, I'm in mourning.
Somber day.
Very somber day. I'm actually not. This is probably the easiest playoff loss I think I've ever had to endure.
Why?
Because it was
Expected?
very expected.
Yeah, I was preparing myself all week. I just kept saying, like, they're just going to lose. And then I was like, if they did somehow win, I'd be like, hey, you know what? That's great.
I think
I
think the big difference is because the last two should have also been very expected. They limped into the playoffs, got the Bills and the Chiefs in the first round. But there was hopium there because they started off really bad, and then they put a run together to become a playoff team at the end, similar to Denver this year.
Like they didn't have a chance.
There was a lot of hope for when people were ranking the playoff teams, they were like, Pittsburgh's the worst team, and it's because they were on a 5-game skid or a 4-game skid rather.
Yeah.
Right. But they were super high on Denver. And like some of these other teams that like Washington kind of limped their way in.
Momentum or whatever.
Yeah.
But like you can have all the momentum you want, but then you play the Bills away.
Right.
And you get whacked.
You just get whacked.
Like you had no momentum going to Baltimore, and that game was never close.
No.
At all.
No. And the last handful of playoff games haven't been close, but
that's the thing is you guys get there and then nothing happens.
What I don't think people understand
lately
is
post BR.
During BR too.
Oh.
But what people don't understand is that for the last since 2019, the Steelers have been a bottom third offense in the league year after year after year after year after year. So 2019, they missed the playoffs. Ben was out all season. 2020, he came back, and they won the division somehow with him throwing for 3,200 yards.
That was the COVID year?
Yeah. He was abysmal coming off of his elbow injury. Just could not throw the ball more than 15 yards. Somehow they win the division. They go to the playoffs. They get absolutely mauled by the Browns at home. And that was it. That was the end of Ben's career.
Who was the quarterback for the Browns?
It might have been Baker. I think it was Baker.
Baker?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that injury was the end of Ben's career. But he stayed for another 2 seasons. They made the playoffs 2 more times. They got absolutely embarrassed at home by the Browns, losing 21-0 right out of the gate, or maybe 28-0 in the first half. I can't remember. It was just one of those situations, and this is what I don't think people understand is they've been bottom third in the league in offense for the last 6 years. They've been top third in the league in defense for that exact same period of time. We have absolute superstars on the defensive side of the ball. So they say, how do you give up 300 yards rushing? It's you get out, the time of possession is 3-1 in favor of Baltimore.
Well, that's the product of the rushing. It's not the inverse.
It's also a product. No, it's a product of your 3 and outs. It's a product of you never moving the ball in the offense.
What you're telling me is that defense does not win championships.
It can, but
not as much as they would like to claim.
I think it's more some.
This was my point.
I'm coming to Brian's point.
Yeah,
where it's that a great defense can complement a mediocre offense and win, but a great defense can't overcome an abysmal offense.
So what you're telling me is
where the inverse could potentially.
I'll take my apology right now.
What you're telling me is the best defense is a great offense.
Yeah, I mean that was the point I was making. Say you have 2 teams, right? and you have a team where the defense is ranked last in the league and the offense is ranked first, or you have the inverse. Which team would you rather have? Obviously, the greater one that has the offense, right? It just has a better chance to win. That's just the way it's set up now.
Yeah.
You got to score to win.
I mean, you would assume neither would be successful, but...
No, I'm saying if they were playing each other, right? Or which one would you rather have?
I think the thing that is most noticeable is that it's easier to fix a bad defense.
Was the opposite just the Bengals?
Yeah.
They were like a great offense and had no defense for whoever who knows how long.
definitely
The
easier.
Ravens as well.
It's definitely easier to fix a bad defense because it's not centered around one person, which is the quarterback. And it's just like if you don't have a superstar quarterback, you're just not going to make it in this league.
What's Mr. Unlimited?
He's limited.
He's trash. He's fucking 37 years old. He's garbage. He's been garbage. Like he was never
you guys
not
were high on
garbage.
Mr. Moonball.
Well, he looked good for, he came out of the gate and he played well, mostly against like subpar teams, and he did fine. And it was just like, okay, well maybe this guy is serviceable. And then once he started playing like the best teams in the league, it was very clear that he's very outmatched.
He was no longer serviceable.
I just all right. So the way I want to have this conversation, or the way I want to frame this conversation, I guess, is around the entitlement that sports fans tend to have. And I knew that Yinzers were bad. I forgot how bad. Like I forgot that we basically ran Cower out of town.
Yeah. I mean, you say bad. What do you mean bad? Because there's a difference between being entitled and having a level of expected greatness, if you will.
Okay. Well, what I guess I'm getting at is the disassociation between the expectation and the outcome. So football more so than anything is a results-based league, but what's not being recognized is that over those last 7 years where Tomlin's head is on the block, is on the chopping block here, they never had a playoff team. Not once did they have a team that was capable of winning a playoff game.
Okay, winning a playoff game, maybe not. There's a difference between being able to make the playoffs and having like a team that can go deep into the playoffs. Right? Those are two different things.
Yes, there's
Especially
a
now
difference.
They expanded the from 6 to 7 people allowed into the playoffs. So that has something. They came in a couple times, like 7th. Like if they didn't expand it, they just wouldn't have made the playoffs a couple of those years.
Yeah.
And they barely got in this year.
It's only been 7 for 2 seasons now.
No, it's been
since they did the 17th game.
I'm not exactly sure how many, but it's got to be at least 3 or 4, right? I don't know. I mean, the years fly by so fast that I'm like, yeah, 2019, 2 years ago.
Right.
Like, that was 6 years ago.
Like right now it's Pirates baseball.
It's baseball season, right? Obviously. Can't wait. 73 days to opening day. Let's go.
I guess that's the irony to me is that we're so willing to accept mediocrity when it comes to baseball. And
I don't think we accept it. It's been this way for the Pirates for so long where this is not how the Steelers are. The Steelers, like for the last quarter of a century, the Steelers were just like you were like in it to like even longer than that, even in the 90s. Like you just expected like, okay, it's Steelers season. We have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, right? Like we should be in the mix. And it's been like that outside of, a handful of years where they were just had a down year. But like every other year, it was like they could win the Super Bowl this year. But with the Pirates, it's literally they've been bad since 92.
I don't think the Steelers could have actually won the Super Bowl in a very long time.
Yeah, I think that's like
the Steelers aren't beating anyone in the AFC like that.
That wasn't true either in the 90s for the big majority of it. Like we had swings where we had opportunities, but like we came into the 90s with Bubby Brister.
I mean, 94, we lost in the AFC Championship game. 95,
94, 95.
We lost in the Super Bowl. 97, we lost in the AFC Championship game. So it's like we were always there. We were always right there.
There were, that's the cyclical nature of the NFL, right? Is that you're going to have these 5-year to 10-year windows depending on who you're building around. Like if it's a quarterback, it's going to be a longer window.
But the Steelers have had multiple of them.
And they will continue to.
A rich history.
And that's the whole point I'm trying to arrive at, is they'll continue to have these multiple opportunities where a core comes together. Right now,
remember what I said? Past performance is not indicative of future performance.
What does that have to do with this?
What they did, just because they've had this stuff in the past doesn't mean they're gonna continue to do it.
Yes, they will. And it's
based off of what?
Based off of exactly how the franchises ran. They're currently making the playoffs, lacking talent in the most important positions for putting up points.
But is that a good thing?
Yes. It means that the core is incredibly solid and that they're one or two key players away from actually being.
Away.
I mean,
no, they truly are.
But like you say, one or two key players, like getting a franchise quarterback is not an easy. It's not like, oh, it's just one player away when it's one of those players is a franchise quarterback, which doesn't come along very often.
No, of course it doesn't. But
that's what the swings are for.
But if that's the state, like who else is making it without a franchise quarterback?
Right, that's what I said.
Okay,
right.
so then
you gotta find one.
If it's understood,
right, but maybe that's a huge mistake that the Steelers have made, not finding Ben's heir. Maybe they should have been drafting, a quarterback or trying to have somebody in line to take over for Ben. They didn't. They just let him, wither away to nothing.
The only two. That's not true. They drafted quarterbacks. They were just bust. Pickett was a bust. Rudolph was a bust. Like
we knew about Pickett, man.
I mean, like, what do you want them to do differently? Like, they're drafting low every time. The only two players that they've passed on that they had the opportunity to take otherwise were Jalen Hurts and Lamar, and both fell.
I was going to say those ones. You
probably could have picked up one of them.
Yeah, if you picked up one of them.
Okay, but like it's an insane thing to say in hindsight. Like Jalen fell to the second round and Lamar fell to the 32nd pick. Like obviously, all the other GMs passed on him as well.
Doesn't make it right.
It's true. Passing on Lamar now seems absurd.
No shit.
I know. You guys need
That's
Lamar.
Not how you
get Lamar to the Steelers.
Man, this is incredible. Like how much it's actually just proving the exact point that I wanted to make.
Get Lamar to the Steelers.
Which is how ridiculously insane it is to not be able to just look at the model that's in front of you and understand how much variance is dictating the outcome. Like nobody was projecting Lamar to be Lamar. And they've hit on other players where nobody's projected them to be that high, like Pickens. Pickens was supposed to be a bust. He was going to be this guy who was trouble in the locker room, which he still may be, who knows. But,
the talent was always there.
Yeah, but it was considered to be raw and that he just wasn't going to cut it at the NFL level. Whether that was a talent-based thing or a personality-based thing, like this is the stuff that
I think you're rewriting history there a little bit.
Then why did he fall to us?
I mean, he fell to us because of the certain off the field things, not on field. Like
that's what I'm saying.
No, you said that he wasn't going to cut it in the NFL.
Yes, because of his problems or whatever the case may be.
His demeanor.
Yeah, he still has those problems.
But that's the thing is that he doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, sure, yes. He
I don't know. I've seen some clips of him throwing people to the ground.
You must have watched the season with your eyes closed. Like, Jesus.
Turtle.
I just think that you guys...
I like Matt and the Turtle. Good times.
I mean, he was a disaster all year.
I've sent you Instagram reels of him.
chose violence.
What was he
today.
a disaster at?
I mean, my God. Like, just all the off the field stuff, all the stuff that, like, the head case stuff, him, like, committing all these unnecessary penalties and just doing dumb things.
He did rip that guy to the ground by his helmet.
Word.
He did do that. I did send you that video when he played Dallas. He ripped a guy down. That wasn't very nice.
Okay, so young receiver committed penalties. These are the things that we're going to run them out of town. The Raiders have two receivers that are in
like
jail.
Unnecessary penalties.
One killed a man driving drunk.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that the bar was murdering somebody.
What off the field? Well,
vehicular homicide was the bar. If you would have put that at the bar, then sure, Bert, you're right.
I'm just saying, well, if we're talking off the field problems, there are real fucking problems. Like he's not exactly in it. It's just like saying Juju was a locker room cancer because he was on TikTok. Like, let's chill out a little bit.
Saying that what's the guy? Jared McCain from the 76ers is a locker room cancer because he's making the TikToks from basketball. You know this guy from Duke that was like making all the TikToks and scoring like 80 points a game?
No, but 80's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be rookie of the year. Same thing.
Yeah.
Real menace making TikToks.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that when the expectation is Super Bowl or bust, you're going to be completely destroyed year in and year out.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
That's not the way the league works.
Yeah. And it's not that it's Super Bowl or bust. It's just that I think like a couple years of like no playoff wins that they could tolerate, and they did. But after 8 years and not winning a playoff game, right? It's like you go almost a whole decade without a playoff win. It feels like, okay, well, that's a long time. I think something needs to change. And that's where the fire Tomlin things are coming from. And it's like, I don't know if like firing Tomlin is the answer, but like this is what literally everybody does is they look for change. They look at the top, right? And he's the top. He's the one that manages the entire team. So if the team is not doing what you want it to do, then you start there and you go and then you move on.
I mean, it sounds like
that's why everyone's like, fire Tomlin. He can't win playoff games. He can't. He's not like, or like at least he hasn't been able to. He hasn't been able to move the team through the playoffs in a decade, and that's a problem if you're a Steeler fan.
But it's
just
a
find
sample
a franchise quarterback.
It's a sample size of 8. Only 2 of which you had a healthy franchise quarterback for.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like this is literally like losing 3 flips in a row and then saying like I must be trash at poker.
But nobody there's like
we came in as double-digit dog the last 3 playoff games that we played.
Yeah, but like that's the problem. Like it's like oh well, he's losing playoff games because he comes in as a dog every time, so it's fine. It's like, how about don't come in as a dog, right?
But like you need if you
have a better team.
No, the team is really good. They are missing the quarterback. Like if you put Josh Allen on the Steelers, the problem
isn't that they're losing games where they're double-digit underdogs.
Just be a better team.
The problem is that they're double-digit underdogs. That's the problem.
They were away.
Right? It's not that they're losing those games. Nobody cares. Nobody's like, oh my God, like expects them to have won all those games. They expect them to have a better team when they get there.
The alternative to being those double-digit underdogs is just like
not making
it. Losing more games in the regular season.
Yeah, that's the only option.
Basically,
the option's not having a better team, not finding a way to be a better team. And
there's only so much that can be done. Like that's why there's so much parity in the NFL. That's why there aren't franchise quarterbacks on every single roster. There's literally only so much that can be done to fill these voids. And obviously bringing in veteran presence at the quarterback position doesn't really work. People feel like
they wasted a few years with Pickett. They wasted a few years at end of Ben's career. Now they're wasting another year with Russell Wilson. Like maybe they should have stuck with Fields. Maybe there is something there with Fields, but like you wasted another year because you didn't give him a chance because you thought this guy was your answer, which he clearly wasn't. And that's a Tomlin thing, and that's why people are upset. It's not that exact decision, but it's compounding decisions that are leading people to call for his head.
Here's the logical counter I would present to that statement. Is that the Steelers had the number 1 most difficult schedule in the NFL. The Ravens were number 2. They started off hot, outperformed expectation. They were meant to be an 8-win team. They started off 4-2 with Fields. They brought Russ in, won the next 2 games. They had 2 ugly losses with Fields, Dallas and Indy. They brought Russ in. He, was serviceable. The only thing I could expect, or the only thing that I would, I guess, say in defense of the coaching staff is that they thought Russ complemented the defense better than Fields. And that's the only thing that makes any logical sense because the core component of what allowed the Steelers to win was that they had the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. They have the number 1 edge rusher in the NFL. Like they have all these pieces. They have the most expensive defense in the NFL. They've built from the defensive side of the ball outward because they lost. They had massive turnover at the end of Ben's career. They lost the entire line from like 2021 on. They lost Ben. They lost their entire receiving core. The turnover at receiving core has been twofold.
People thought Claypool was going to be good. Now he's gone.
Claypool, Juju. And Ben made these guys Pro Bowlers. Juju was a Pro Bowler his rookie year. This guy is barely in the league right now. Claypool's out of the league. I don't even remember who was complimenting them. But like after the AB and Lev spell where they turned over, they were able to plug and play guys that were hardly, top of the. Don't get me wrong. James Conner is a very serviceable back. He did great.
He's amazing.
He's
one of the best backs in the league.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. He's a great short yardage back.
Serviceable, if you will.
Well, he's very injury prone. He's a big back. He was a good he is a good two-headed monster in Arizona, and he did very well for us. I mean, they very much could have picked his option up. I think they had him cheap, but he was it's the same thing with Najee. They're gonna demand more in the open market than they're really worth, right? Like they're guys that are gonna rush for 1,000, but these days you can just draft, get rookie contracts, and if you have a good line, you can plug and play people for 1,000. And I think Warren is a good example of that. Like, he's not a feature back, but he's fantastic in the backfield. Yeah. So they've had all this turnover on the offensive side of the ball. The only place that they've remained solid was at the tight end position, running back, because they immediately replaced Connor with Najee. And then they started to fill in the pieces at offensive line. This year was probably the first season where they had a solidified offensive line start to finish. And they're still having growing pains with Jones playing out of position, really, at right tackle, where, now Dan Moore is going to be a free agent next year, so maybe they move him to left tackle and try to give him a chance, or maybe they give up on him. Who knows? Not really sure. But basically, there's still a couple holes at the offensive line. Running back position, solid. Tight end position, solid. We have our wide receiver 1 in Pickens, but they haven't been able to, fill out all of the other positions. We still need a wide receiver 2, a slot guy. You still need to find the quarterback, but they have serviceable people at least that are in there. We're probably going to end up with Fields for another season or 2. And he's going to get you 9 wins year in and year out. But the likelihood that he's going to become a franchise quarterback when he's shown nothing between Chicago and even his first 6 games here, he was fine. But I think the understanding around the war room, so to speak, was that this guy's not ready yet. Let's at least let him get mentored by Russ for a year, and hopefully he'll turn the corner. Personally, as a fan, I don't think he's going to turn the corner, but I also am not idiotic enough to think that there are just guys laying on the street who can come in and win 13 games for the Steelers.
You think if you put Darnold at quarterback for you guys would be good?
No, I'm very, very much on the side of Darnold is completely a byproduct of that system. He has 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL to throw to at any given time. He had proven nothing at any other stop that he had. I think if you're going the Darnold route, you start to look at Baker. I think Baker's far more talented. I still think he's a mid-tier QB. Yeah. But he's much, much better than Darnold. I think and maybe I'll take some heat for this, but I think the Darnolds, the Goffs of the world, they're far from being S-tier QBs.
You mean
or
Corey?
even A-tier QBs.
Corey's going to steal your dogs, man.
No, it's not that. It's just that I think that they get plugged into really great systems. The fact that Matthew Stafford couldn't win in Detroit was a byproduct of them not being able to build around him. Once they were able to let him go, everything else got built up. Their defense is one of the top in the league. They ended up getting a 2-headed monster at the running back position. Their wide receiver core is incredibly solid. They have a number 1 guy in Aram St. Brown. So now you plug in Goff. It's fine. What is it? Amon-Ra, whatever.
So
Goff is exactly what they need. They don't he'll keep them competitive. They don't need to have a franchise quarterback necessarily, right? They don't need to get a Josh Allen to win because they're so solid at every other level. Pittsburgh's still not solid at every level. So, of course, they need a lot of talent at quarterback to do something.
Would you consider KC, just because Mahomes is there?
No, their defense is incredible.
Whoa, hey.
Their defense is incredible.
What are we doing here,
Bolt wants to talk about the defense.
Bolt's
Bolt's pushing the Steelers out.
Yes, he's I'm
no more Steelers. No more Steelers. No more.
No.
There it goes.
Get my Jolly Roger and putting it up there.
There you go.
Bolt, what are you doing, buddy? Come here.
You're gonna find out how stable that table is, buddy.
I think KC's defense is incredible. I think that when healthy, their wide receiving core is very good. They have the best, at least one of the best tight ends in all of football. I mean, he's kind of aging, didn't have the best year, and then also Mahomes is just a generational talent.
Yeah. So I'm saying, what do you think Kansas City would be without Patrick? If you put in Fields there instead of him, playoff team that maybe wins?
Yeah. No. A playoff team that could win games.
They wouldn't win the Super Bowl.
They would not win the Super Bowl. Right. They would be equivalent to
a Vikings.
I don't even know
maybe?
what, a Ravens of years past. The Ravens are really.
The Ravens can win.
The Ravens are more solid this year than I think they've been in years past.
The Ravens are really solid.
But Buffalo's still probably a tier above them.
The Ravens play.
Then the Ravens?
Buffalo.
Yeah.
The Ravens play Buffalo in Buffalo, right?
Really close. I think it's 1.5. The line is.
Yeah.
So like basically they're saying they're even teams.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in Buffalo.
Yeah, yeah,
if it's in Baltimore, they're probably favorites.
No, for sure. For sure. But yeah, I mean, like that's the other thing, like as a Steeler fan, look, I get you want the days of yore, but it's like in just in our
yore were nice.
I mean, like just in
You're
our
welcome.
Just in our lifetime alone, we've seen a quote unquote Steeler dynasty. It got massively overshadowed by the Patriots dynasty,
right?
Of course, but like there was a
Second
15-year
fiddle.
window. Well, I mean, there was a 15-year window where we, at a bare minimum, had a path to the AFC Championship every season, and we were potentially in competition for the Super Bowl, and we were good at every level. We had superstars at every level,
and that's what I'm saying. Like that's what people are used to. I understand that it's not like that now. We don't have Ben Roethlisberger, but people don't care.
That's a big key missing piece, right? We are very good at every level. We do not have a Big Ben back there to lead the franchise, and currently,
but like you understand what you're asking, right? You're asking an entire fan base that has like that has just been used to winning for so long to just be like, you know what? We don't have the franchise quarterback, so it's fine. We lost 8. We haven't won a playoff game in a decade. It's just, that's fine. Everything's fine. It's like the dog in the house with it's all burning down around them. It's fine. But like that's what you're asking, and it's just like it's unreasonable to have everybody think that way because that's just not how sports fans think, especially in Pittsburgh.
I'm reading all of Efro's comments. None of them are as funny as what you're laughing at.
How does the GPI not have a category for top poker podcast that mainly focuses on a top 17 NFL team? It's hilarious.
That should
hilarious.
be accurate.
It's a banger.
I don't care about the fans as much as the pundits. Like to me, and this is something that Naj said in his like final press conference or whatever. He said that it got to a point where the echoes of the pundits started to leak their way into the locker room. And obviously that could be somewhere where you point to the coaching issue or whatever. But my whole thing is that like, and maybe this is just like poker ruining sports for me, but at some point, like you just have to kind of identify the math of everything.
Right. And that's right there. Just stop you right there. That's
Stop it. Stop it.
Right. If the entire like punditry world and fan base world like understood math like poker players do, then like there wouldn't be a problem here.
This is why we didn't take Seattle on Survivor because of math, and it worked out.
Sure,
you know what I mean. It's like the same thing,
but it also goes to
we see the world in a very different.
I understand, but like okay, forget the math. You can just attribute it to culture, right? Like it also goes along with the culture. There's teams that like. And this is what I was saying is the alternative, right? When you look at the list of teams that haven't made the playoffs in a very long period of time, the Jets haven't made the playoffs since 14 years, since we beat them in the championship in 2010. Panthers haven't made the playoffs in 7 years.
They haven't sniffed anything.
Falcons haven't made it in 7 years. Colts, it's been 4 years. All of these teams, the turnover at the top it's a rotating door. It's a revolving door of head coaches coming in. There's just no culture, right? Yeah. So I don't understand the desire to have your cake and eat it too, where it's like we want this Steeler way. We want this culture to be embedded in the franchise. But also, if we don't win, burn them at the stake, move on from everyone else. And you know,
bring back the days of yore.
It's just it's unfathomable because we're currently competing with Lamar, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow every single season.
Yeah.
And the Steelers are somehow winning their fair share of the North. They have Burrow and Lamar winning the MVP year over year in the North, and they've still won the North twice in the last 6 years. That's a lot.
It's a lot, but like when it's like call it game time, like playoff games, like you're out.
Well, it's just that's such a ridiculous notion, right? Of like, it's the one and done time. Like you got to get your boys hype. And look, I saw the product they rolled out against the Ravens. They were dead before they fucking snapped the ball. But they were also a 10-point underdog versus one of the 3 best teams remaining in the playoffs.
I get that. It's more so mean like in regular season, like you don't really play them all that much. You know?
Yeah, you do. You play them twice.
Yeah, you play them twice. Like you might split games here and there, but then when you have to play the playoff game, even if they had that game at home, they were cooked.
I maybe. I mean, they were going to lose, yes, but I don't think that the game plays out that way. I think being at home is worth a lot, both leading up to and the actual gameplay itself. Like
they are pretty close to each other, though, right? Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
Yeah, it's not about the travel necessarily.
It's about the feel.
It's just that there is some home field. Like I don't think it's surprising that the Steelers beat them at home and lost to them on the road. I think that that's kind of reflective of what home field advantage in these close divisional matchups look like. But I guess that.
I think you see the point. Like they're good but not great, but you have to be great to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, like I'm just accepting that these are the Tommy Maddox years. It's like
accept your fate.
I was younger then, and I might have been delusional enough to convince myself that we had a chance to win a Super Bowl with Tommy Maddox.
What was this? This was like you guys got playoffs but never won.
I mean, it was the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
So like my college years, I guess. So it was like maybe like 99 to 2003, whenever we drafted Ben.
Right before
I was
Ben,
4.
Yeah. Well, we had Tommy Maddox in there alongside Cordell. And
he was serviceable.
This is pre Ben Roethlisberger.
Right.
You know what? I even understood it then. I'll tell you that much because I was high on Cordell. I said, let the guy fly. Let the guy fly because we don't have a fucking choice.
Right.
We're not going to win with anyone else back there. And we put Tommy Gunn back there, who's the most immobile person since Mike Tomczak.
Right. And it was, it was like, I remember, I'm like thinking that like since the O'Donnell years, like our team was like always good, but could never win it all. I said, we just need a quarterback.
Yeah.
If we have a really good
But you
quarterback.
did have one, which was Ben, and then you won.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. That's what, but before Ben, like the 15 years before Ben was that they were like.
We were a Super Bowl competitive team, but we'd never had the quarterback to close the deal.
Right, exactly. I was like, if we could just get a quarterback, we'll win the Super Bowl, and then we get Ben. We win.
And that's what I'm posing now.
But Brian's
it's the
saying
same thing, right? Like we still have an imposing defense. We still are good at most all levels. We're developing running backs. The line's getting better. All of these things are how you win football in January. You just need a quarterback.
You go play quarterback
who
for
can get
them.
the fucking ball down the field.
Your turn. Matt Berkey, a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
There was so Efro pointed something out, and
your turn.
I'm probably more forgiving of this than I should be. He said, "Didn't it tell you when, just based off what you said, they didn't go for it with 4th and inches from the 120?" It's like, yeah, but I understand. Like, I think it's the wrong decision, and it frustrates the fuck out of me. But I understand where it's coming from. Their belief. They get so siloed into this philosophy of we're going to win on the defensive side of the ball.
Punt the ball, go play defense, don't let them score.
Right. We're going to play the field position game because our defense is going to keep us in it. And eventually they're going to fuck up. We're either going to force a turnover or we're going to get plus field position based off of one of these things. And it worked out for them way more than it should have throughout the season. So many muffed punts in these situations where they're 4th and short and absolutely should be going for it, but instead they kick the ball and somehow the punt returner drops it and we get the fucking ball in plus field territory. Like that must have happened 5 or 6 different times throughout the course of the season where I'm pulling my hair out that they're punting and then I find myself celebrating 3 seconds later. So it's like, I think it's bad, but I don't think it's necessarily just like a Steeler problem or a Tomlin problem. I think it's a league-wide problem. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I would love to shadow a data scientist for the NFL. Like, there have to be, I assume every team has one. I assume they have an analytics guy, right?
Yeah, they just don't listen to him.
I feel like you should look at like the Chargers for that, Like they're up there with like making smart decisions, even though they got
I don't think anyone goes for it more than the Lions.
The Lions, right. The Lions are like very aggressive, and it's worked out for them.
Lions are aggressive.
They might be overly aggressive, but maybe not.
Well, that's the funny.
Maybe not. Maybe being as aggressive as they are is what you just should do, but compared to the league, it looks overly aggressive.
Well, like
they might still be under aggressive according to the model.
Like if you trust your defense, it's almost possible you go for it on 4th and inches at your 20 because it's likely they hold them to a field goal.
The thing is, everybody who figured this out at a very young age were the kids playing Madden because we didn't fucking punt.
There's no punting.
It's like a no punting rule, right? And you just start to understand the value of not punting. And high school coaches have figured this out and everything else. But
it's like high school teams literally do not punt the ball, like 4th and 20.
But there has to be, like, I say I would love to like follow.
Belichick was like the first one to like really start doing it when he had like a great offense, a great team with Tom Brady. And like I remember like watching the first time they like went, it was like 4th and 1 from their own 30. I'm like, they're going for it. That's insane, right? And then he just got it and went down and scored touchdowns.
Tomlin was very aggressive for a period of time too. Remember, he was the coach that went for 2 more than anybody else in the league.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to keep his job now.
No, it started to bite him. They like weren't converting at a high enough rate, and he started to get a lot of heat over it. And I think that there's probably a part of him that understands that status quo is more than enough to maintain position. Anyway, I'll wrap all of this with I wish the conversation would shift to something more meaningful, which is getting off of the things that aren't going to move, which is your head coach, your GM, which, by the way, I think like obviously they're both under fire all the time. I actually think neither of them get enough credit. I think Omar Khan has like done the Lord's work when it comes to his most recent drafts, the way he's been sculpting the team. This team has been rebuilding for 5 seasons without the notion of the world knowing that they're rebuilding.
Right.
Like they're in the national conversation year in and year out, and they're in a full-blown rebuild. They don't have a single core veteran.
Bro, I don't even remember that Jaguars game. I was blacked out. Like literally like physically and mentally blacked out.
That was probably one of the most painful playoff losses. They were really good Pittsburgh was really good that year. Pittsburgh was really good the Patriots year too. That was the Jesse James year where he reached across and they called it a no catch or whatever.
They lost the AFC Championship game to the Patriots.
To the Patriots, which would have been in Pittsburgh otherwise.
Right.
But instead it was in New England. Yeah. Maybe they don't beat the Patriots anyway. It doesn't matter. But the point is like that's where the hidden variance kind of comes in. That Jaguars loss, the Steelers were prime for a push that year. I remember very vividly. I think they went like 13-3.
Who was it? Lawrence was the quarterback for the Jaguars?
Yeah.
Wow.
He just came in and lit us up as like a 6 seed
Lawrence?
or a 5 seed. Yeah. Oh, no. Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles.
Yeah, I was going to say that was.
I was like, when is Lawrence? Lawrence has kind of done not
He might have
much.
been the next season.
Wow. Does this mean Brady was good all along because the Patriots are bad now and they said he was a system quarterback?
Brady was really obviously good.
I don't know. People said he was a system QB, man.
I mean, he was very clearly good. I think that.
Where's the system now?
I think pointing to the Patriots is a very good example of the difference between the Krafts and the Rooneys, and that's just, I guess, that's what's grinding my gears. That's what's getting under my skin the most. Is that they were very happy to run Belichick out of town post Brady. They were very happy to just like start from scratch and rebuild the whole thing, and they're probably going to be a 5-win team for the extended future.
And that's
maybe they build up another dynasty. Who knows? But like that hadn't been the case in the past, and it's not necessarily going to be the case in the future when you move on from the best quarterback of all time and the best head coach of all time. It's like, maybe that was it. Maybe you just built that culture for that 20-year period, and everybody has to keep going back to days of yore.
Yeah, and now Jesse Sylvia will never watch a Super Bowl again.
Right.
All right, let's move on to all the Pirates' problems.
I can't do it.
Yeah, they need you to pitch for them too. So Matt Berkey, quarterback for the Steelers, pitcher for the Pirates.
I would love
and Pittsburgh will be saved. Pittsburgh will be saved.
Matt Berkey and Paul Skenes out there on the mound.
Hell yeah,
Let's
brother.
go.
Hell yeah. We could share Olivia, what's her face?
Relax.
Yeah, fucking chill, Grandpa.
Yeah, Grandpa's out.
She's half your age.
She's not half my age.
Yeah, probably more.
No.
No.
She's probably like 24, 25.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just you wait.
I don't think she's like 21. She's still in college, yeah.
No.
It's like 22, 23.
So?
No way.
She's still on the
LSU?
LSU Tigers.
LSU cheerleading team.
Yeah,
Let's find out.
Dunn.
Let's find out. 22.
22.
Okay, not half my age.
Okay. Very, very, very close.
We've learned today, Brian,
Wait a minute.
not very good at math.
Not yet. In
Very
2 weeks, maybe.
Nope.
No.
3 weeks.
A year and 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're 42?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
I
he's
thought you were
just a
43.
baby. She'll never be half your age.
That's right.
See? I know how to do math.
Now
math.
he's learning. Now that's math, brother.
Wow. That was a lot closer than we thought, though.
But you know what? Like 3 years ago, she was half your age.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, don't worry about that, though.
I'm not going to do math on there.
No.
All right. Let's move into a breaking scandal. No, that's not true.
Breaking.
I'm over exaggerating. More so like follow-up news to a few stories that we reported on earlier last year. So this dates all the way back, if you guys remember, when Wesley. Let me get a date on this. So this was like December of 2023. So a little over a year ago. He kind of came out and he was talking about this cheating ring that was led by Mars.
Shanghainese Tony.
Yes. Who was a well-known regular on the Hustler streams. There was a lot of detail that came out about this. Basically, Wesley, I think Airball was involved, and a few others said that they got scammed for hundreds of thousands of dollars in these cheated home games. And Wesley was, posting day after day after day. One of the cohorts with Mars was Shane Hennen. And that was a name that I knew pretty well. He's actually from Pittsburgh originally. And we went full into details of all the scams and hustles that he's run throughout the years. He went by Colin, which I believe is also his brother's name. And he was a part of that Chad Power home game, which he ultimately cheated there as well. So fast forward to today, and I get dozens of people sending me this article on ESPN that's titled "Vegas Man Arrested in Connection with the Jonte Porter Betting Scheme." So to catch everybody up about what the Jonte Porter scheme was, he's brothers with what's his brother's name? He's actually good. Jonte Porter and whatever, something Junior.
Joey Porter Jr.
Not Joey Porter Jr. He's very good though. Lockdown corner, baby. Don't forget it. I don't watch the NBA. But anyway.
Oh yes, I don't remember the guy's name, but this was the whole like point shaving thing for the bets.
Yeah. So not just point shaving, but basically, he was a backup bench player, and he was coming off of an eye injury. And they were offering props on him for whatever reason. So it turned out that it looks like he was diagnosed with a corneal abrasion. So he had this eye injury. During that game, he texted his co-conspirators and he said, "I went back to the locker room to get checked on. I don't know if I'm going to play much more. I'm not starting second half, but if it's garbage time, I'll just shoot a million shots." So basically, they had already been working together in like trying to get his props and stuff like that.
Right, like shots attempted overs versus just like anything else.
Right. So I guess like ultimately it was because he was in heavy gambling debt with these guys. So fast forward to January 26th, he said hit the unders for big numbers. I told a co-conspirator, no blocks, no steals. I'm going to play for the first 2 or 3 minute stints off the bench. And when I get subbed out, I'm going to tell them my eye is killing me again. So in the props, they obviously don't have any like, any sort of injury clause or minimum number of minutes.
The game, or as long as you play.
As long as you play, yeah. There's like no minimum number of minutes or anything along those lines.
Right. If you start, then your props count, and then when you get subbed out and don't come back.
Like if you're active, as long as you're active for the game. Right.
So yeah, you prop someone, they get injured, you get unlucky.
Right. So they laid the wood on a $30,000 parlay. It's actually $29,382 on under on Porter's rebounds and points, and it would pay out $103,387. I think it was DraftKings ended up flagging this as being suspicious behavior. They look into it further, and all this becomes uncovered. So today, the man who was arrested was none other than Shane Hennen.
Amazing.
The poker cheat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, who's this?
He's the guy who is a part of the Mars cheating ring.
Oh, I thought you were talking
literally the guy we were just talking about.
I thought it was Shanghainese Tony. That's a different guy.
It's a part of the same crew. So
gotcha.
there's multiple of them. So back in June, there was another person arrested on behalf of the Jonte Porter point shaving, and it was Long Fi Fam. He went by Bruce.
This is the classic like no one will ever find out kind of thing, but then they find out.
Yeah.
Like there's no way you get someone else to do this, right? Unless it's very like, how do they flag suspicious or non-suspicious? Is it because of like previous betting history?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, how would you find out that something's suspicious? Like,
I mean, it's probably just that this is such an absurd parlay.
Is it? Like, if you just like completely short some guy and they just don't hit, like It's a very normal thing to happen, right?
Well, I think it's more so
Like Conrad hates Najee Hires.
I think it's more so the shorting the player and then him only going in for one possession or whatever, and then coming back out and saying he's hurt.
Yeah.
It's just so suspicious.
Right. It's like, because like it's just so random to throw like such a large number on some random guy.
They didn't bet like 2K.
Right. It's just like all of a sudden like $30,000 comes in on this like bench player. Like
it's a pretty random bet to put in the first place, so they're probably not getting a lot of action on it. And then when a big number bet comes in, and then it just happens to like, that starts to look funny.
That's gonna flag it to begin with, and then they go and see what happens. They're like, okay, well, connect the dots here.
How does someone even get found out about like number scraping, like with this Jonte Porter stuff?
Well, they just, I assume anyway.
Someone asked him, did you do it? No.
No, I assume that they were able to seize his text records.
Right.
Like that last article I read had the full text exchange between him and the quote unquote co-conspirators.
Right.
But the bigger takeaway here is that the entire ring of his co-conspirators, who are clearly like, fixing games and, manipulating sports outcomes and things like that, are also known poker cheats.
Fixing games, just different game.
Oh, it's a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, I get it, because it's like if you have access to an NBA star who's willing to shave points, that can be some pretty free fucking money.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you told LeBron, like, hey, like don't score 30 points, he scored 28.
Yeah, sure, but like you're not going to get control over LeBron. So what ends up happening is you can only control people who have very little impact, and now it becomes a lot more noticeable. But the thing is that like there's real ramifications. These guys are going to go to federal prison. Nothing was going to happen from them stealing from us in poker. Nothing. I can assure you, based off of what I've seen over the last 16 to 18 months,
you'd have gotten away with it.
There are no repercussions,
which is insane,
for poker cheating.
Which is literally insane. Like you can steal like literally hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars from people, and you don't go to jail because it's poker.
Right.
Well,
what the hell are we doing?
here? It's home games, right? It's not that casinos.
What do you mean?
No, it was in the casino.
Well, I mean, these were home games, but like there was definitely a lot of noted cheating that's happened in the casino. The issue is that, well, it's twofold. One, the incentives aren't aligned because the house doesn't care about protecting peer-to-peer interactions, right? And then two, the proof isn't hard-clad or ironclad, right? The proof is just pretty speculative, where it's like, okay, well, we noticed this, and this, and, with reasonable doubt, it all aligns to cheating.
Yeah.
So it's like the best they can do is just ban people. But man, what a scam. Right. Because the thing is, alternatively, if the house had the same sort of inclination that they were being edge sorted in Baccarat or whatever the case may be, not only would they withhold payment, but they would take them to civil court like they did with Ivy.
Right.
Which I guess they had to take Ivy to civil court because they did pay, but they won that fucking case.
Right.
Imagine as in the Ivy quote unquote Ivy cheated.
Yeah.
And what did that mean? They didn't have to pay. I had to pay him back. Or something?
I'm not sure if all of the casinos won their case, but I know that MGM won their case, and the Brigada was able to recoup like $8 million or something.
Fine line between like a civil case and a criminal case, right? Like Ivy didn't commit he didn't break any law. Right.
No, we just got him good.
But yet they were able to get him in civil court. They couldn't like prosecute him in a criminal case, did they?
Correct.
He didn't,
especially because I don't think like
it wasn't criminal activity, right? What he did?
I don't think it would be qualified.
He just like found a card deck and they agreed to it.
Right,
they said, "Hey, use these cards." They said, "Okay, sure."
Which
and then
is
they lost.
wild. Which is wild that
and then they lost.
That they then ended up winning the civil case.
That's what I mean. Yeah. How'd that happen?
Probably something in the terms and conditions. I would imagine, like something that we agree to when we choose to gamble.
Well, imagine we play a game and I say, "Hey, let's use this deck," and you say, "Okay, cool," and then you lose. And you say, "Oh, he cheated."
Right, but that's all. That's also why like criminal cases don't come out of this stuff.
Just be like,
They don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Like the Apostle thing, for example.
What happened to that
The
guy?
evidence was so overwhelming, and the California courts had wanted nothing to do with it.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate because
Man, the Apostle, the crotch stare, check jam, laugh your way to the bank. Remember?
it would have been interesting to see that actually play out in a civil case, either in a civil or a criminal case.
Yeah.
Because obviously, and I imagine this happens in everyday life. We just don't really recognize it because we're not experts in stuff. But like, obviously, everybody's going to be a layperson when it comes to hearing the arguments of both sides. And it's going to take a lot of attempting to educate either a jury or a judge of what the fuck is taking place here. So imagine like, now zoom out. Imagine you're on a murder trial, right? And the murder was committed in some sort of like, nuanced way where a lot of things had to be true in order for this person to be guilty. And now you have to educate the general population on why these things are conclusively true without having damning evidence, because you're an expert and you've seen this enough to know that A equals B equals C equals D.
It reminds me of from It's Always Sunny when Charlie's like pointing at a bunch of different things in the post office with Pepe Sylvia.
Yeah.
It's like Pepe Sylvia does not exist. And it's like, this is true, this is true, this is true. It's like, whoa, man, I can't handle all this.
That's the thing. Like, proving the case is the hardest part.
Right.
Obviously.
Yeah. But I think that it would have benefited everybody to have the case heard.
The memes, though,
right?
Unbelievable.
Especially if we were able to get like our best and brightest on it in some sort of capacity, where now we're forced to kind of come forward with evidence of this stuff.
Messing with the NBA though, you're cooked.
Yeah,
it's over.
No, they're going to federal prison.
It's over
for sure. I mean, I'm sure they'll plea out in some capacity. Although at this point, like, to get who? You know what I mean? Like, how much higher up does this go? Kind of thing. Can we tack on the poker cheating stuff to the charges?
Yeah, we should. Right? Why not?
So let me get this straight. You're running an illegal home game with a bunch of cheaters, and they stole a lot of money from you, and you want us to prosecute that.
They would like add all those charges onto the actual indictment, and then like he would be found guilty of everything except the poker stuff.
Right.
It'd be like,
well,
yeah,
I mean,
poker's poker, What's a few million between friends?
I guess what I'm getting at is like, we are notably in a very gray/black market. So you kind of get what you deserve when you take on those sort of risks.
Right.
Like that would be the laughable statement, right? It's like, okay, so you were running an illegal home game with a bunch of criminals who cheated you and stole a bunch of money.
Right.
And
Sounds
you want
about
us
right.
to charge them.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
We're going to move past this. We'll actually turn a blind eye to the illegal home game that you've been running, which, by the way, many of them have seen murders take place in the last year. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was this like 6-month stint where people were just getting shot in LA home games.
Yeah, that's right.
Like just death after death after death.
We're going to look past that.
We're just going to breeze on by, move right.
But point shaving
is a big no-no.
Yeah.
Big no-no.
You're gone.
Do not mess with the big four of sports in America.
That's true.
Poker's number 5, unfortunately, for us.
Yeah, we're number 5.
Right. Just missed it
by that much.
Yeah. Man, if we can get the league minimum up a little bit, That's
what they're doing with Squid Games.
Right. Bring out the Squid Games. Oh, man.
Well, that stuff's going on too. We're not going to charge them. I'm not going to charge them either.
I don't know. I don't think the world's ready for Squid Game, to be quite honest.
Are you? Are you ready?
I'm born in the darkness. They've merely adapted to the light.
I like the nonsense asset next to you.
Mr. Squidward.
That's not nonsense.
No, it's his game. Squidward Tentacles made up Squid Game?
Yes.
Okay.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't.
He's a real gambler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about with the Pepe Sylvia.
We definitely knew what you were talking about.
So good.
Oh, man.
The only thing we get is memes. Like the Apostle stuff, we got memes, Like this stuff, memes. Like they might go to jail, but like we have memes. People lost millions, we get memes.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true. We also get like, it's a good conversation to have out in the open. It's good to, this is what I was talking about with Mattisau, and it fell on deaf ears because it was being spoken about with Mattisau instead of, you know, somebody who would actually hear the words coming out of my mouth and not make it about him. But I was mentioning that, like, you know, specifically in December, it's like the busiest time of year for gambling. A lot of people flow into Vegas, and they come and they frequent these games, and the games are good and they last longer, and, you know, there's just a bigger pool to choose from, even at the high stakes. And as a byproduct of that, a lot of young kids get to take a shot. So, you know, generally kids that would have no chance whatsoever at ever sitting in these private games are very useful as seat fillers to make sure that a game continues to go, that recreationals are happy and whatnot. And what I was saying to Mattisau is that as poker players, they're incredible. They're A tier. You know what I mean? They have all the chops as a poker player to make money. If you're backing them, you're very happy because they get it. They understand how the game works. They see the numbers. They see the variance. They just get how to weave in and out of decisions, and that's fantastic. But their card sense is absolutely zero. And what I mean by that is that they just don't understand the gambling environment in any capacity, right? They see it as this binary zeros and ones where your only job as being in that seat is just making the highest EV decision every time it's your turn to act. And they completely miss all of the subtlety of what's taking place in this environment. Who's on tilt, who's not on tilt, you know, what would make the game better in this particular moment? What would make the game worse? Who should you joke around with? Who should you speak more respectfully to? Like, all of these aspects. And then it carries out further. Like, when you start to talk about all of these ways that people are getting got, they're the most ripe for the picking because they just don't understand the gambling sphere. And either they're far too trusting or they don't trust anybody. And neither of those are going to get you ahead in a trust-based industry, right? You have, and this is no fault of their own. Like, you know, I think Landon's pretty well adapted. I also think that he's ripe for the picking in these scenarios, right? He plays mostly in protected environments. He gets to go enter an MTT where
I double straddled and people got mad at me.
Right.
People got mad at me.
Right. Where the worst thing is going to happen is he double straddles and gets yelled at.
Yeah, I got an ace and a jack. If I knew I was getting that, I would have put it on so fast.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
natural 9, no good. Natural.
But like what I'm getting at is like there's a lot of risk that comes with being a professional gambler that is not inherent to the cards that you're dealt. Right? There's risk in the games that you play. There's risk in the people that you play with. There's risk in location. There's risk in being paid, being slow paid, loaning, lending, all of this type of stuff, right? Borrowing. There's so many inherent risks to being a gambler. And if you just opt out of all of them, you won't find yourself in the arena for very long. It's just a necessary evil, and it's a big part of having card sense, right? Being able to identify the person who's tilting out of their mind and adjusting your strategy accordingly to that. Being able to identify a guy who hasn't paid off a river bet since 1965 and being able to adjust your strategy accordingly. It's not just adjusting your river strategy, right? It goes all the way backwards. It's like, if you know in this one particular node, this guy just doesn't ever pay, well, then we need to do things earlier in the hand that ensure we're able to recoup some of that EV, right? And I think that, you know, as we kind of touch upon all of these different methods through which people get got, like, I don't want to use them as an example, but like Ethan is like the perfect example of a guy who's walking around with his eyes wide shut.
Ethan Delona.
Yes, Ethan Deloner. Like, he's made every mistake a professional gambler can make, all in a very short, tight 2-year window. And, you know, it's a byproduct of being young and having money and having opportunity and all these other things. But I don't know, man. Like, obviously, we all learned feet to the fire. And at least I can say I feel very, very lucky that I haven't had any nightmare scenarios to speak of. But man, looking around, like, a lot of the guys who didn't make it from our era, they just got absolutely crushed when it came to either the pit games calling their name or, you know, the lending borrowing game and not being able to navigate that appropriately, getting fucked because 3 whales try to get you in a 4-handed game with them that clearly is too good to be true, but your ego doesn't allow you to see it in real time, and they just work you over. Happened to Landon. You know?
Yeah.
You learn some things.
Yeah. When you learn when people start calling each other names and then saying, I ain't a pussy, you gonna go all in too? Because you're not a pussy. And they're like, yeah, I'll go all in too. And you're sitting there with aces like, oh, like, all right. One of them's probably gonna win the hand. It ain't gonna be me. Right. It ain't gonna be me.
That's a little more specific, but like a great example is if you're playing in a home game and you go to the bathroom. If you're playing in a home game and you go to the bathroom and they like hold your hand for you as you're coming back, and you come back and you look at a premium, you got set up.
Yeah.
You look at aces, whenever they're like waiting for you to get back to your seat, you're fucked. Just muck your hand.
Yeah.
Quietly muck your hand, rack your chips, and go home.
Yeah. I mean, that was what a night that was, man. Wow. Just I ain't a bitch. You a bitch. Like, I'm all in. You gonna go all in? It's like, all right, yeah, I'll go all in. Like, two people on the other hand, like, have aces and like double suited hands. Like, okay, we're all in too. And it's like the Jack 6 9-4 single suit is just
right.
But Doogie Eving just ready with the 4-4-4 board. And it's like, boom! I told you I ain't a pussy. And it's like, all right, man.
Right. When you find yourself sending that text to your group chat of like, you won't believe what just happened. 4 people are all in dark. I have aces. I obviously call, and this guy hits quad 4s with ace 4 offsuit. And it's like, yeah, you got, man. Like,
you won't believe this? Yeah, I don't believe it because you're getting cheated. So get up.
Right.
Get out.
Yes. Right.
Get out now. Say, I gotta go to the bathroom and call an Uber.
And it's tough. It's tough to navigate in your own mind. You know, it's like bringing this full circle to the sports and game theory conversation. It's like those samples. You know, they say the NFL is a bottom line business, right? It's win or move on. Poker also bottom line business, but when you're incapable of putting volume in for either, which let's be clear, like one and done tournaments are often going to be one and done. The expectation to win games in a one and done sort of event should be relatively low. It's so dependent upon draw and your matchup and whatever. There's a million different variables, right? But when we put the expectation on like, no, your results are all that matter, then it becomes really difficult to navigate like, okay, well, how much of this string of outcomes is variance versus the likelihood that I'm just getting fucked over in this particular spot, or in the football scenario that the staff itself is just incompetent or the players themselves are incompetent or whatever. It's almost impossible to say with a high degree of confidence that like a sample size of nothing has any clear indicator that something nefarious is happening versus like just dumb luck. But when you add on the layer, and this is more so speaking to live, when you add on the layer of everything that's happening, like all the variables around you that are observable, it becomes pretty easy to qualify this data, I think, right? Like there was the scenario in the WPT Voyage cruise where somebody got angled, like flipping at the end of the session. They were just high carding for like 10K or whatever. And the guy who angled him, like after the kid drew a queen or something like that, the guy like goes like head first into the deck to like spread it and is getting like inches away until he pulls an ace. It's like, yeah, bro, he's marking the fucking cards.
Right.
You know, like he's in there searching for the marked cards. Like that was not random luck. Mm-hmm. But if that's not live, if you can't see all of that stuff happening, then of course you're just going to chalk it up to like, wow, that was very unlucky. You know, there's no way that, like, if we just gave somebody the data of a person pulled a queen and then another person pulled an ace, what's the likelihood that the person who pulled a queen was cheated? You would assign it to be near zero, right? But when you qualify it and say the person pulled a queen and then the person who then is next to draw fans through the entire deck.
Oh my god!
Before finally landing on what ultimately becomes an ace.
Nose to the table.
Right. What ultimately becomes an ace. Right. What's the probability that the person who had a queen was cheated?
Right.
Now you're assigning like over 70%, mm-hmm. over 90%, right? And then to follow that, how this person who drew the ace reacts when getting called out in the moment. That's going to further get. It's all circumstantial, of course. but it really does tell the tale. And
what a time that was. Wow.
Weird time. I mean, the last 2 years is like, it's like we've backtracked all the way into the 70s again.
Yeah, the Aiden Ross 21 Savage arc.
Except for the Steelers, they're not back in the 70s.
No. Well, defensively, we don't have a Bradshaw.
It's so crazy how fast like new things pop up. You just forget about the old ones. Like, I completely forgot about that.
The Aiden Ross thing?
Yeah, the Aiden Ross 21 like card moving.
That wasn't even what I was talking about.
That's funny.
It was just that exact scenario played out on the WPT Voyage cruise. I don't want to name names because I think that they ultimately made, like, I think the person didn't take the money.
Yeah.
So I don't want to call them out for it. But it was the exact same thing. Like, they're betting on high cards and one person clearly is marking the deck and just like fanning through. Same thing as the Aiden Ross and 21 Savage thing.
Yeah.
Which that one was especially wild because that was on stream. They're both two very high profile individuals. Like, that's just you not being able to get out of your own way.
Right.
You know, he obviously doesn't need the money. He just doesn't actually want to gamble for it. You know, like whatever they were flipping for, 50K, 20K, 10K, whatever, 21 Savage actually doesn't want to take on the risk. So he just wants to like embarrass this guy on stream and then get caught after the fact, only further embarrassing himself. And the thing is like in the hustle culture, this is just expected, you know? So it's like,
gotta keep your eyes out.
Yeah. Like when we're talking about all these different forms of potential cheating, soft cheating, angling, all this other shit that can possibly take place at the poker table, in some cultures especially, it's highly believed to just be a part of the game, right? Like there are certain aspects of Chinese culture where it's just about getting one over on your opponent. It's not about ethics or some code of conduct, right? Like it's just a fixed part of the game. And you have to deal with that whenever you're then in a different setting where that's not a part of the game. And like we don't take lightly to people shooting angles and shit like that. So it's weird, man. It's live is not as evolved as online. No. Not even remotely close. And I think, you know, just putting a bow on it, like when I talk about card sense, I'm talking about all these things. It's not just the innate ability to kind of have an intuition for where your hand stacks up against your opponent's range based off of action. That's part of it. But it's also about like having that like inner voice that just says something ain't right. You know, this guy's just doing something that doesn't add up. Or this string of events that have occurred, it seems unnatural. And I'd like to further investigate or at least get out of harm's way, you know, kind of leave a bad spot whenever you're in one. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess putting a bow on it, we'll see how all this plays out with the Jonte Porter stuff. Not specifically Jonte Porter, but the guys who were involved. We'll see if Wesley is able to recoup any. Highly doubt it now.
Yeah.
Now they're up on federal charges.
Right. That's not.
That money's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. That money long.
Never
Where's Mars? Where do you think Mars is?
On Mars.
Yeah, it might be on Mars. Maybe that's why that was his nickname. He was saving all the money to be one of the first test pilots on Elon's.
Yeah, SpaceX.
Yep. Send me to Mars, baby. Get me the fuck out of here. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Jesse Sylvia in studio. We're also going to be joined by his 2012 main event final table, Jeremy Osmus. Poker Go Tour champion for the year. He's going to be coming into the studio. We're going to have a lot to talk about with him, including...
Why are we getting such good-looking people in like the all at once? Like it's going to bring us down.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Or
does it bring us up? I don't know. Just makes the whole thing look better.
You never heard of the cheerleader effect?
Yeah, right. Of course.
There you go. Okay. Wore something nice.
I wore something nice today.
You did.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back noon Pacific tomorrow. Be sure to join us. Jeremy Osmus, Jesse Sylvia in studio. We'll see you guys all then.
Peace.
Peace.